Welcome to the Best Known Church Show, where we show you how to 10x your reach with church marketing that will help you increase your impact, make more disciples, and become the cornerstone of your community again. This is for the leaders with an outrageous vision, because anything less would be an inaccurate reflection of our Creator. The ones who have unreasonable faith, because you know God works unreasonable miracles. And the ones who are relentless in the pursuit of your calling, because anything less would not make a good and faithful servant. If that's you, you're in the right place. Now, please welcome your host and guide on this journey to become the best known organization in your community, Justin Nava.
What's going on, Pastor? Welcome to the Best Known Church Show. And today's a little bit of a pretty serious topic. But let me tell you this. I am tired of churches coming to us to help them and finally being willing to make the investment to get the community aware and engaging with their church, only for them to have to back out of the contract 4, 5, 6 months later because they can no longer sustain themselves. They either shut the church down or merge with another church. Now, thank the Lord, usually what happens is a merge. There's been only one instance where a church has shut down entirely on our watch, and it's not because we didn't do our job. It's because they came to us too late. You cannot take a bleeding victim to the hospital within minutes of their lives when they've been bleeding out for hours. You need to get things rolling. You need to get support. You need to start get healing immediately. I've done several CPR certifications, and each time, I mean, they're classes for renewal and all that stuff. Each time they tell you seconds count. When someone is bleeding out, seconds count. You've got to get them. You've got to stop the bleeding. You got to get them to the hospital immediately. And a lot of times churches, they wait because they hope the pain's going to get better. They hope the pain is going to subside until eventually it becomes too late. They go seek help. And it's like, no, dude, we got to take the leg. You've waited way too long. And so as we come into a recession, whether that's now, I'm literally putting this out the day before. I'm putting this out on July 27th, the day before the whatever government administration is supposed to come out and say, hey, yeah, we're in a recession, or hey, no, we're not in a recession. Whether you believe that report or not, we've been through recessions. I'm 30-something years old, 34 years old, and I've already been through 3 in my lifetime, 2 that I've actually been an adult for. And I've been a part of the church life and the church world in my own churches, both as a part-time staff and full-time service. And I've lived through recessions, and I've seen churches close their doors during recessions, and not even recessions. Let's call it economic tightening, right? Because you don't have to be in a flat-out recession, especially if they change the definition of what a recession is. You don't have to be in a recession to benefit from what I'm about to tell you here. You just have to be aware that your community is economically tightening down, which means that you are tightening down. I guess we should call it more of a contraction. Your community and the businesses and the flow of energy and money and investments and attention is contracting. How many times have you been in some money issues, whether that's through your fault or not? Maybe something happened in your house and you're like, all right, we got to start spending pennies. And now all of a sudden, all those opportunities that come your way, you say, no, I'm not even going to pay attention to you because I know I can't do it. I know I don't have the money. I know I don't have the time or investment. People are working 2 jobs. They're paying less attention to your church. They're having to strict down on what they're doing with their family. They're paying less attention to your church. We need to be especially cautious of this during a recession. But let me tell you, I don't like using the word but. I usually have a but bell when I say the word but because I hate that word. Let me tell you this. There are ways that your church can come out on top, both financially and impactfully. Your church can actually make more of an impact in the recession. We've got some data from Barna that proves that shows that, some other data from other evangelical outlets that do this kind of research that show the church can not only survive, but also thrive in a recession. So again, we're going to talk about how to grow your church in a recession, and I focus on attention and awareness. So I want to talk about how to grow your church effectively in a recession through getting the community aware of you, engaging with you, connecting with you, discipled by you, impacted by you. Because I do believe if the church can impact the community and raise the community up, I think, hey, all the community, whether they're engaged with you or not, is raised up as well. If we haven't met, my name is Justin Nava. Hit that like, subscribe wherever you are. Leave a comment, review wherever you are, podcast, YouTube, social media. Any of that helps the word get out and lets me know what's working with you guys so we can go ahead and do more of that kind of content. And if you don't know anything about us, when we're done here, you'll know more about me. You can also go to navachurchmarketing.com, learn more about our organization and what we do to help churches become better known in the community, reach 10 times more people, increase their impact, and make more disciples, and really become better equipped to serve the people they're called to serve. Like I said, I've been a part of a couple of recessions. You know, we had the Great Recession of '08, and of course we had the unfortunate side effect recession, I'll call it, of the pandemic. I'm just gonna say it, and I try not to say it on YouTube because they like strike you or whatever. But my it's old enough. I think we can get away with it. You know, so I've gotten through that. I've lived through another one, but I was a kid, you know. Not only that, my family had to sell our house during the recession. It was just the season of life that God had brought us to, or unfortunate circumstances had brought us to. Maybe that's probably more likely of where I should put it. So I've had to do that. And then I've also bought a house during a pandemic recession. And so, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I've kind of seen it on both ends. And then not only that, I've served in a church part-time and been serving full-time in church during both of those pandemics separately. So I've gotten to see kind of as a fly on the wall, and then also as the wall, what happens in a recession. And I've seen a church I've been a part of that church that turned its attention and said, hey guys, this isn't working and the recession is making it worse. So we need to focus on what is working and apply it to our church and see it happen. Then I've seen other churches where, you know, I tell them, hey, we're in the pandemic. We need to make some adjustments here. And they say, nah, we're just going to try to really do minimum effort until we can get out of this. And I've seen other churches that said, yes, we need to embrace this because this is not only going to change right now, this is going to change how we do things in the future. And guess who is making a greater impact, making more disciples, getting more attention? It's the latter churches that said, I know this isn't just a temporary thing. This is going to change the way we do our lives. Let's do this forward. So if you're watching this, wherever you're watching this, whenever you're watching, this is a great video that's going to come to people in the future, because this doesn't even have to be a recession of 2022. This information here is going to work if the recession's in 23, 25, or even in the 30s, right? Because what we're talking about here is dealing with it when you're in the recession. You know, one of the things, little behind the scenes here, one of the things that I really struggled with putting this video together is I didn't want to do another video. You see a lot of videos out there called Future Proof Your Church. The problem is optimism bias, right? It's not going to happen to me. It couldn't happen to me. We're going to do fine. That's why I have so many churches call us up and seek our help when the cow's already dying. There's nothing I can do. You're going to have to shoot it in the head or let it die naturally, right? I hate to be that guy. There are steps that you have to take before a recession, but if you take those steps and then don't continually execute during the recession, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So coming into this, I want you to be in the frame of mind that what we've been doing ministry. Obviously, the church is still in existence, but now there's a contraction. People are tightening their wallets. People are saying, I don't have the energy, the money, the resources, the time, attention to put into the church. What's been doing is working, but now we're in a different environment. So now we need to go ahead and just really look at what we're doing that's working. I'm going to get more into depth on this and how we can use that to reach more people, even when we have to restrict our resources. Let me tell you this. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to focus on the positive. Okay. I was honestly surprised when I looked up some of this information out from Barna and other organizations. And I'm going to give you the top two that were like, man, this surprised me. Okay. In '08, during the Great Recession of '08, 1/3 of churches said they were unaffected, meaning their giving stayed the same. Their volunteer energy investment stayed the same. Not much change. Their staffing stayed the same. 1/3, 1 out of 3. I think you're doing pretty good there. And then not only that, 1 in 11. So yeah, 9% is 8%, whatever 100 divided by 11 is. 1 in 11 were actually financially positive, meaning they came out ahead. Now, 1 in 11 churches, that's like 1 in every town, if that. And I'm not counting the small country towns that I love to drive through in Texas. Okay. The other one, bonus one here, half of pastors said there was no difference in their church finance or volunteer force during the pandemic. Right. And so I think some of that is, well, the activity of the church goes down, so you need some less activity. However, there are a lot of states like here in Texas where after 3 months, we basically went back to normal. And we had some adjustments, but I think with any adjustment, you go back to normal and you go back to do your normal life. You're just wearing a mask. What's the big difference? So we get this information here and I'm like, wow. So I think a lot of the success that churches have is in their mindset. And so that's the main thing you got to do. If you clicked on this video because of the thumbnail, or if you watch this because of the doom and gloom, hey, I'm sorry that you're here because you're like, oh, things are going to break and I need to figure out how to get out of here. But let me tell you, the first thing is it's not as bad as we make it out to be. Okay. Half the pastors are saying there's no difference after a worldwide pandemic and everything has to lock down, whether you liked it or not, whether you voluntarily like, hey, we got to do this, or whether you're like, oh, they're forcing us to do this. Half of the pastors were unaffected. Okay. And then not only that, 1/3 of churches in a recession, in an actual recession, one of the worst, in my opinion, that crash of 2008, 1/3 were unaffected. So what I want to do is I want to take that to 1/3 to 1/2. And I want to at least make you one of that half that are unaffected and doing business as usual. And then I want to take that 1 in 11 and I want to make that the other half that are like, hey, we are actually reaching more people, because people remember who's reaching out. People know here in Texas during Hurricane Sandy, people remember the churches that came from all over the state and Louisiana to help. Okay. People in New Orleans remember the people that came and helped during Katrina, and people in your community. I'm on the coast, so I just automatically go to hurricanes. People in your community will remember who helps. We remember the organizations that help distribute supplies, distribute medicine, distribute food, all that. They remember. And so what I want to do is make sure that they remember you. And you have to stay positive. You have to have, as a church facing recession, you have to have an attitude of advance and conquer, not retreat and save. That's a commonality I noticed in churches, that when the economy constricts and money tightens, the churches that have that attitude of, well, we must restrict as well and conserve and save. I hate to tell you, but money is a tool of ministry. And if you restrict and save your money, you're going to restrict and save your ministry. And if you're not doing ministry, that is one thing that's going to happen in a dying church, is they do less ministry. They're not living on mission. Hey, they're going to die off. And so you have to take that attitude of, we're not going to restrict and save, we're going to advance and conquer. I'm going to show you how to responsibly and in a good steward-like mentality to advance and conquer, because you don't want to just say, hey, we're going to use all of our credit limit. We're going to use all of our savings. You don't want to do that. I'm not telling you to do that. What I am saying is, don't take your budget and cut it in a third because you're expecting a third less, and all of a sudden everything gets cut by a third, including what's working, and you're not going to stop what's not working. You should cut what's not working and double down on what is working. Take what's not working and move it over to what is working. It's a tough thing. We're going to talk about that in a second. But if you start retreating, you're basically admitting the Titanic is sinking, right? And if the Titanic is sinking, no one is going to give time, money, attention, talent. They're not going to give that to a sinking ship, okay? And that's the problem, is a lot of churches come to us looking for help to right the ship. Among other things, there are spiritual components that we're just, we're a marketing agency, right? We're not going to help you with your spirituality or create your discipleship process. We're going to help you communicate what you do have. But they're trying to come to us and say, hey, stop the sinking ship. The ship's already half sunk. I can't, the bows is at the front of the back of the ship. I don't know. The back of the ship is already broken in half. You can't fix that. What I can do is say, there's an iceberg coming ahead. Instead, veer off. And you can't say there's an iceberg coming ahead. Everyone jump on the rafts. That's what I'm talking about. When I say retreat and save, I'm saying don't go jump in the rafts before you hit the iceberg. Advance and conquer. Take control of the wheel and get out of the way. And if you've already hit the iceberg, hey, let's go ahead and make some adjustments to make sure we save every life possible and impact every life possible in your community. But if you're just going to sit there and say, everything's tightening, we're cutting everything in half, we're doing a spending freeze, guess what? People are going to stop investing in your church. They're going to say, this place is going down. I'm going to go find another place to serve. Why would I give them my money if it's going to go to zero in a few months, half a year? You have to stay positive. Keep that positive mindset. You're not lying to yourself. You're not manipulating yourself or your leadership or your people or your community. You're saying God's brought us this far. He's brought us through so many recessions, the churches that are 80, 100 years old. He can get you out of this one, but you have to stay positive. The pastors that were pastors of the recession and actually did well or even made it through unscathed, they had that attitude of advance and conquer, not retreat and save. So you have to focus on the positive. Number 2, you have to focus on expanding. Okay? You can't just say we're trying to keep status like normal. This is the whole thing about what we talk about, outrageous vision and outrageous action. Anytime you work with us, you're going to hear us say that. You have an outrageous vision, we have outrageous action to make that vision a reality. You can't just focus on hoarding everything that you have. If your marriage is struggling, you can't struggle to hold on to what you have. You have to strive to make it better than what it is. And so you have to focus on expanding. If you focus on keeping the status quo and you fall short, you've fallen short. If you focus on expanding and falling short, hey, you maybe grown a little less, but you've grown or you've stayed the same. I would rather you shoot for 100 yards and hit 80 than shoot for 50 and hit 50. The worst thing than missing a target that you set too large is hitting a target that you set too small. Let me say that again. The worst thing than missing a target, I said that incorrectly. The worst thing than missing a target you set too large for yourself is hitting a target that you set too small for yourself. Man, I am just butchering that. Let me take a drink here and we'll get back to it. There we go. You have to focus on expanding. Okay? So aim higher. And that's a mindset thing. That's why I'm talking about you have to stay positive. That's why I hit it first thing. The mindset is what hits it. And the pastors that don't focus on their own mindset, their own mentality, their leadership, having that mindset of discipleship or having that mindset of outreach, those churches die off because they're not living the mission. They say one thing and do another. So you've got to focus on expanding. I'm going to say it again. I would rather you aim for a target that's too high and miss it than aim for a target too low and hit it. That's the only thing that's worse than missing a target is hitting a target that you set too low. I could have done better. And I don't want you to come out of this recession, whenever it is, and say, hey, we made it through and we only lost 10% of our family and we only had to cut a third of our budget. I want you to say, hey, we made it through and we were shooting for a growth of 50 families, and hey, we only reached 25. But guess what? You reached 25 more families. You changed 25 more lives. There were 25 more parties thrown in heaven because you focused on expanding. So a couple just real quick action steps that you can take to focus on expanding. You're in a recession. You've got people asking questions. You've got some unsurety, but also you've got some opportunities here. Right? You've got the problem of recession. You've got the problem of tightening, but you've got opportunity in that. And if you see those problems as opportunities and you conquer those opportunities, you will grow your church. And so what you have to do is you have to reach out to everyone you know in your church, including the people that have been involved in your church. Some people call it reactivation. Some people call it revisiting, whatever you want to call it. Go through your church roll, anyone, your database, whatever you call it. Go through that and make contact with everyone. Use your deacons, use your elders, use your staff, right? To me, getting a call from an elder or a deacon is going to be much more impactful than getting a call from the children's pastor just checking in on my daughter, right? I'm getting a call from someone else in the family that actually shows some concern and wants to see where I'm at. How are we doing? How can you help? How can you serve? Right? So you need to get back into your role. And this is also, you get the side benefit. You get to cleanse your role. Who's still here? Who's not here? There's too many churches where we're like, how many are on your roll? 800. How many show up to church? 130. Bro, clean your roll. All right. This is something you should be doing regularly anyways, but take advantage of it in the recession. And the last thing, when I say focus on expanding, you have to really focus on what's working. And this is tough. Because in a recession, you're going to have to work a little bit harder for a little less results. But if you don't work a little bit harder, you're going to get no results. And you're going to have to make some tough choices. And it's easy, Pastor. I understand it's easy to look at everything and say, we're just going to cut everything off a third. Whereas what you need to be doing is saying, what's working in this area, we need to boost. Our groups are doing fantastic. Our college ministry isn't. It's struggling. It's bleeding resources. We're not seeing much impact there. It's a tough choice. And it's easy for me to say on the outside to cut one ministry to fund another, to boost another. Because we don't want to look, I definitely don't want to look at people like that. I already have to focus on, hey, the numbers here are numbers, but they're actual people, they're actually souls. Jesus died for these numbers. I get that. But also, instead of cutting everything in a third, and you're cutting a third of what's working, and you're cutting a third of what you're going to get the same results, whether you didn't cut it at all, or you cut all of it, right? So double down on what's working. Maybe freeze some ministries and allow others to be funded. And this is going to reflect your church's health. Because too, I know, Pastor, you're like, if I freeze one lay leader's funding and boost another, that's going to cause some issues. Well, guess what? Those issues were already there. They're just now being present because you're trying to double down on discipleship, double down on what's working, double down on what's actually winning souls. And you had some toxicity in there to begin with. It's just now you got to actually deal with it. It's tough. I understand. The other thing too is you got to make it easy for your church to gather and invite, which really leads to my last point. It's a little different during the recession of the pandemic versus the recession of 2008. But, we know we're not going to kill Sunday service. We are going to pay the lights. We're going to turn on the AC. We're going to do everything we can, right? If the pastor's mic goes out, we're going to figure out a mic or buy a new mic, even though things are tough, because people need to hear the pastor. People need to hear the gospel in the recession, right? So we're not going to cut our gatherings. We know that. You can still make it easy for your church to gather and celebrate and worship and fellowship and encourage and disciple. You can still make it easy for people to gather, right? I'm a huge fan of decentralizing. Instead of bringing things to the church, bring them back online. Say, hey, we're going to conserve our resources and really focus on putting money into our resources. And I say resources, not just money. It's also time, talent, investment, all of that into what's working. So you may have to cut some corners. I understand that. You're not going to cut everything entirely. You're not going to cut everything across the board. Make it easy for your church to gather and make it easy for them to invite their friends, right? Maybe you do stuff that's normally, you ask for, I don't know. I don't want to say a ticket, but you ask for, some kind of investment. People need to pay money for this, right? Well, maybe you make it free. And then when you invite people, they're like, hey, it's something free. It's something I don't have to pay for. And so you make it easy for others to gather, and then you can carry out your discipleship or whatever you need to do through there. But the last thing is here that you need to stay positive. You need to focus on expanding. And a part of that expansion and making it easy for people to gather and invite is you got to make your church better known. In a recession, I say this is common in business. This is not common in business. It's common in the businesses that win. In a recession, when the economy constricts, when things tighten, the people who work to be better known win, and the people who struggle with just maintaining the status quo lose. It's almost like the strong survive and the weak die off. That's why we have so many businesses consolidating into a few. It's just part of the economy that we have. I have my opinions on that. But anyways, it's the ones that work on becoming better known that thrive in a climate like a recession. Okay, the best known take over and the weak die off. And so what your church has to do is you really have to double down on making sure you're in front of your community. Because you know who is doubling down on making sure they're in front of your community. The media outlets, and I don't care who you like and who you don't like, they're all working just as hard. That's why everything's split 50-50 right now. They're working on scaring your people. You've got other organizations that are saying, hey, we're desperate too. Come over here. Come over here. And in their desperation, if they outwork you in becoming better known, your people are going to go to them than they are going to go to you. And I guarantee you, unless they're another church, they are going to not have an eternal impact like your church would. It is your duty, pastor, to become better known in a recession. Attention is limited. Resource is limited. People are scared. People are timid. And while they are retreating and saving, I need you to advance and say, hey, you are still worthy. You are not defined by your economic success. You can be defined by your identity in Jesus. And this is how. And if you just sit here and try to save everything and not working on becoming better known, you are going to save yourself to death. And rather than impact the lives of thousands of people, you're going to continue to impact the lives of whoever you have, and you're going to continue to bleed out until you finally make that decision to do something, and it's going to be too late. To grow in a recession, you have to focus on being better known, not just to strangers, right? Becoming better known is not just making sure everyone hears about you once. It's about making sure that everyone hears about you and you're on their mind and on their lips multiple times. Have you ever ate at a restaurant or seen even like a brand, maybe a shirt or something? You're like, hey, that's cool. And when you try to tell someone later, you're like, oh, I can't remember the name of it. What was it called? It's going to kill me. I don't remember what it was. I don't even know what to Google to find out. It's because you only saw them once. Your job to become better known is to not be in front of everyone one time. It's to be in front of everyone continually. And if you're a church that's out there and doing your job and a recession hits and you retreat and save and take money out of your marketing, you're taking money out of your ministry because people won't be thinking about you. And then when you do come up, you're going to look desperate. And again, no one wants to invest in a sinking ship. And I don't just mean money, I mean their time. Why would I go to this church and make acquaintances and relationships if it's going to die off? No thanks. I'm going to stay home and do what I normally do because I'm comfortable. Whereas if you're a church that's always on mission, and especially so during a recession, people are going to notice that. People notice the organizations that work harder when times are tough. And unlike the big businesses, you're not going to get any help from the government. So you've got to outwork them when they're getting free money. And you're not. It's tough. I had a church especially that came to me. It took a lot of negotiation because I really had a heart for this church. It was a referral. Got to learn, I did the whole consultation process with them. And we had to do some negotiation, right? They were trying to save money. We're a dying church. We're down to 30 people. We've got to get people in here. We've got to get people talking about us. We've got to introduce them to the church. We've got to get our people excited. I said, yeah, a new website is part of that. I said, it's a puzzle piece. We really need to do the whole plan, almost relaunch the church, even though we're not relaunching it. We're not changing anything. We're just relaunching its presence in the community. A lot of negotiation later. We decided, okay, we're going to start the website, get a foundation. They had just changed the name of the church, and we're going to try to work on this. Literally after we had written the content and built one page of the website, they called me and said, hey, it's been voted on. We're going to merge the church. Now, the entire time that this was on the table, they said, we're going to try to make it work. We're going to do everything we can, including change the name and try to get a better web presence. So when we start telling people, they can find us online. But it was too late. The people in the church knew we're dead. We need to save what we can and almost organ donate to another body and merge with another church. It was too late. And even though we did all the process, and I fully believe that we could have done their website, we could have worked on their identity and their messaging, and then we could have made it easy for people in the area to discover them and increase attention. We might have actually flipped it because they needed the attention more than people were searching for them and gotten that attention. We could have turned it around. We just didn't have time because the runway was too short. They waited until they were 3/4 down the runway before they turned the jet engines on. Run it off. End up in a field somewhere. I don't want that to happen to you. So as we enter this recession, you have to focus on being better known. You have to look at what's working and then double down. Figure out how to expand it. If your kids' ministry is working really well, expand it. Don't cut it in a third because it's fair to cut everything in a third. Focus on what's working. You're focusing on your kids' ministry now. If you have to cut your college ministry, just using that example, that painful example, is going to benefit your college ministry down the road than if you just cut everything in a third and hope it works out. Advance and conquer. If you need help with that, send me a message, leave a comment. We'll reach out to you. We'll figure it out. We're good at our research. But reach out to us if you need help. Just getting that roadmap. We're doing consultations, get you a roadmap on how to be better known. Because the last thing I want is for your church to have to merge or even worse, shut down. I mean, that's a body dying, and it's a spreading of money and resources. God called your church to exist for a reason. And when it dies off, it just kills me. So that's how you grow in a recession. If you have any questions, leave a comment. You can go to thebestknownchurchshow.com, leave us a voicemail there, ask a question. Appreciate you for watching. God bless. And, advance and conquer. If you're listening to this before the recession, you've got time. Prepare. Start getting known now. If you're listening to this in a recession, hey, you've got the roadmap. First of all, stay positive. There's a 50% chance you're going to come out of this unscathed. And there is a chance that you can actually grow during this. And to do that, focus on expanding and be better known. God bless. I'll see you guys next week.
That's going to do it for today's episode of the Best Known Church Show with Justin Nava. Be sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest news, strategies, and resources that you need to reach 10x more people and become the best known in your community. To send us a message or leave a voicemail for Justin to be played on a future show, visit thebestknownchurchshow.com. And if you'd like to work with us so you can focus on your ministry, give us a call at 832-861-7654. Until next time, stay outrageous, unreasonable, and relentless.